Good afternoon, buenas tardes, and thank you for tuning in. On behalf of Mitchell Kaplan, Miami Book Fair, and all of us at Books and Books, I welcome you to a virtual afternoon with Caridad Moro to discuss Tortillera, candid, unflinching poems that address the queer experience of coming out while Cuban. Caridad Moro is the author of the chapbook Visionware. She's a contributing editor of Grabbed, Writers Respond to Sexual Assault, and associate editor for Swim Every Day. A career educator, she's an English professor at FIU and MDC in Miami, Florida, where she resides with her wife and son. In conversation with Caridad this afternoon, we're joined by Richard Blanco and Nikki Mustaki. Selected by President Obama as the 5th presidential inaugural poet in U.S. history, Richard Blanco is the first Latinx immigrant and gay person to serve in such a role. His books include How to Love a Country and The Prince of Los Cocuyos, among many others. Nikki Mustaki is the author of the memoir, The Bird Market of Paris. She's the recipient of a National Endowment for the Arts grant in poetry, along with many other national writing awards. Throughout this afternoon's broadcast, you're invited to ask questions by clicking the Ask a Question button at the bottom of the screen, and you can order your copy of Tortillera from Books and Books below by pressing the green button. We appreciate each and every order and the generous donations from viewers everywhere. And now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our guests to the virtual stage. Hi, Cari.
Hi.
Hi, Nikki. And welcome, Richard.
Freaky. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone out there in Zoom, Crowdcast land. Welcome, everyone. So this is gonna be a conversation, a reading, kind of a reunion of friends as well. And I'll start us off. The three of us actually have been friends and colleagues and readers of each other's work way back since graduate school, or even before graduate school, in the case of Carrie and Nikki from high school, right? Like all the way to high school. And we just love that. We love that community that we've had between us. It's been so helpful. It's been so amazing to have that kind of support, to have not only in terms of being readers for each other's work, but just the emotional support that is so much part of being a writer, right? Of having that kind of community. And so I hope we bring a little bit of that to you here today. But Carrie, you'd speak to how this book came about in that context or whatever context you like. But how did Tortillera come to be finally? And what has been your journey with the book?
The book has been writing itself, I'd say probably since grad school. There's a lot of we were speaking the connection of our friendship going back so long. There's a lot of Miami, and there's a lot of the Miami that we knew as young students going into today, how it's changed. And much like our city, my work also reflects that. There are pieces in the book that talk about my upbringing, the early poems, and they go through the trajectory of the experience. And the book has been writing itself as I have been growing into myself. And I think it's reflected in the arc of the work. It's representative of how I started, who I was, how who I was has merged into who I am now. Also, not just by my geography or the place in which I am, but also in how I view that place. The lens of age has also, I look at my work differently now, which is very interesting because it becomes an artifact, right? That person who wrote it then versus the person who is talking about it now. And it's indicative of the journey of the book, which took, by the way, 10 years to get completely done. As you both know, and I think, like with Richard, I would have conversations throughout. It's interesting to me that the last poem that I wrote for the book is the first poem in the book. It's almost like the whole thing needed to be written before I knew exactly how to frame it. And that came from a conversation with you about the title of the book.
Yeah, you're making me think how interesting that, I mean, it seems like 20 years. One says, oh my God, 20 years. But now that I look back on it, yeah, of course, because a lot of the book is an unraveling, right? And so it had to be done when it was done, when you were sort of done, right? Like, so, not that we're ever done, but it makes a lot of sense. And also, yeah, the whole part of Miami is really fascinating too. We're having that conversation the other day about, the first place we were able to hold hands, with a partner, with a same-sex partner in Lincoln Road, which is like such part of the city and part of that place, and like your geography and your sexuality and everything sort of intersecting in that way, and how Miami has changed so much too, right? So yeah, I can see how that book needed to take its time.
Yeah. It could have been written earlier.
And the journey, well, let's promote the book here. And the journey is so clear in here, that there's an actual narrative arc, to the book, which is really interesting because not a lot of poetry books do that. And I think we get to know you really well in here, but we also get to know Miami, which I think is really interesting as well.
And it's interesting because I wasn't born in Miami. I came from California. So a lot of that newness of place for me extends beyond the Cuban American diaspora. I learned to be Cuban in LA, and it was different. What it meant to be Cuban in LA was very different to what it meant to be Cuban in Miami. And I think that's kind of reflected as well from the poems that I read about my childhood. There was also this sense of unraveling. Unraveling, that's a great word.
Cool. Great. You want to start reading a little bit?
Sure.
Should we do the first poem?
Yes.
Okay, so for everybody out there, what we did was Richard and I chose the poems that we wanted Carrie to read, because these were among our favorites in the book. And of course, so my first poem that I want Carrie to read is called Analphabeta. You say it, Carrie.
Analphabeta.
Yeah, my accent's not so good there. So I chose this poem for Carrie to read because it is in my absolute favorite Carrie's greatest hits poems. I just think like there's no reading can go by without reading this poem. And also because I think a lot of, the viewers will understand when you read it, but a lot of us kids who were kind of a little bit of smart asses in school, wise asses in school, will totally get this and relate to this. And I think all of it, I remember times when this kind of thing would happen to me too, also in school. So go ahead and read it, and we'll talk about it.
Thanks. So Analphabeta, this was for my grandmother, who can't read this poem but supported me in writing it. So this is for my abuela. Analphabeta. It took a while for abuela to figure out that an F on my report card did not stand for fantástico. Her experience with school limited to 4th grade, back in the days of wooden rooms and rulers that beat knowledge into those bold enough to opt for ignorance. Abuela kept what she could from el colegio en el campo, arithmetic, the alphabet, penmanship that wobbled long before her arthritis set in. She would not stand for less than my best, which is why she beat my ass with her chancleta when she learned I'd been lying about my ease with fractions and PE. You would have thought her a dignitary the day she walked into my 6th grade classroom, staccato heels, her good black dress, ironed crisp as a dollar, all for a date with Mrs. Dempsey, who looked at us down the long slope of her nose and began to tear me down in tea-time tones that forgot to mention she sometimes slipped and called me spick, how she pounced when I spoke to my friends in Espanol. Abuela caught most of the words Dempsey lobbed her way, but didn't say a thing, just glared at me. Every second she endured the shame of my shortcomings, as personal as the fine stitch of her heirloom DNA, as if she alone were to blame for the thrust of my chin, the purse of my lips, the crossbones of arms I strapped to my chest, as the words, too smart for her own good, lingered in the air like the bells that ruled our days. Which is when Abuela finally stood, said the words that set me straight. Never tú es smart, mi niña. Never tú es smart.
I love that one. It gives me goosebumps every time because it's such a flip, right? Because your grandmother goes in angry at you and then realizes as the teacher's going that this lady's not coming at you fairly.
Right,
Really interesting.
And the idea too that I come from a line of very strong women on both sides of that family tree, just strong, brave, courageous women. And I think the idea of a girl being too smart, I never understood that. You're too smart for your own good. I don't understand what that meant, because I guess my whole childhood I wanted to be the smartest. So I couldn't understand that sentiment. So that's really what I wanted to drive home, this idea that being too smart, maybe my attitude got me in trouble, but it wasn't that I was thinking. And that's something that my grandmother has always, both of them have always shown me through acts. My great grandmother, all these strong women. So it's really an homage to them.
And there's this one line I love in here so much, the tea time tones. It's
right,
perfect because you can just picture her so condescending, and it's a wonderful poem.
You get a really strong sense of the matriarchal figure in there, and throughout the book, which also reflected in your own consciousness in the book, Carrie. But it makes me think about also how I don't know. Sometimes that complex emotional, like you're saying, that complex kind of a contradiction, like and the flip, right? But also, like, I remember how with our parents sometimes, like, we'd be embarrassed by them because they couldn't speak English well enough or whatnot. But when someone made fun of them, you're like, oh no, like
right.
my parents. And it's kind of like this kind of interesting relationship. And I don't know if everybody out there knows that what an analfabeta means, right? So that the illiterate, which is I think of the title is playing with all of that. So very cool. That Cuban abuelita.
Actually, the first poem I ever wrote at the very beginning of this project was Analfabeta.
Oh, it was.
I felt like I wouldn't be this girl writing this book with the courage that it took to write if it weren't for these forebears, these women. My great grandmother who came here with no language, no skills, and sewed her family back together in Miami. That's the spirit that led to the writing of that.
Definitely. So I picked one. We're going to do 4. I mean, 2 each, right? But Carrie having a choice. We said we were reading these, and that's it.
I kind of love that.
But let me just make sure I got the right page here.
Page 25. 25. Yeah.
So I picked what the white girl asked at our 20th high school reunion, and why this is a standout poem for me. Besides obviously personal connections, but I just love the intersection. I mean, this poem does so much. It intersects so much. It's so economical in terms of class, cultures, sexuality, gender roles, gender expectations. And it reminds me of my own complex upbringing too, of like sort of in high school and thinking about, the cool white boys and why, or like why you wanted to be that and didn't want to be that and how you were limited. I don't know. There's so many layers of interesting intersections and contradictions and whatnot that, I just thought it just did it all for me. So
okay, let's do it. Thank you. What the white girl asked at our 20th high school reunion. Why weren't we friends in school? We weren't friends because I knew you hung out in the American parking lot, unlike my boyfriend who parked his Stingray in the Cuban one on the other side of school. Of course, I hung out there. Not that you would understand why being his girl meant I could not sit in your car at lunch and listen to your Def Leppard, your Motley Crue, leave him to fend for himself. We weren't friends because he courted me old school, couched beside my father every Sunday, while I served apprentice to my mother, her eyes onion stung, arms spattered with marrow and lard, who worked at loving her place at the stove, rules I had not learned how to break yet. We weren't friends because I envied the way you weren't allowed to settle, how you were encouraged to date assorted breeds of boys who strutted across the lawn to ring your bell. Your dad waved his blessing out the door and didn't worry because he taught you to discern, to choose among them, taught you to drive yourself, headlights set on more than the slam of the same car door, even if it was a Corvette.
Great.
And I have to say, that was a true thing. I went to Southwest Senior High School, and there was a Cuban parking lot, and there was an American parking lot. True story.
Which high school, if we may ask?
Southwest Senior High School.
Southwest.
And there was a redneck parking lot, too. Let me throw that in there. And we knew where you were according to the kind of music that was playing. If you were listening to Expose, you were in the Cuban parking lot. If it was Motley Crue, you were in the American parking lot. It's so interesting, right? And like,
Yeah.
you were like, all right.
Go
I
ahead.
love that word envied too for me. Like, we weren't friends because I envied. That's such a complex and honest, and it kind of speaks to that, like I was saying, kind of that contradiction. Kind of, you just read the grandmother poem, which is praise, right, for our culture and like and our history. But then there's also this conflict, right? That we're also trapped by traditions. We're also trapped, and so we're also in a way envious of other experiences, and then those, like, and also like in the grandmother poem, then those people that don't accept us yet and it's this wonderful sort of complexity that I think is so true to life. I know I had that in high school. It's like, well, I'm proud to be Cuban and all this stuff, but then everybody had this other life. So then I saw my culture both as at times as a liability in a way, as well as something that propped me up. And it's still sort of in a way.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it's still kind of nuanced, right, and multivalent in how you view that. And mostly it was envy, because I could not have dated boys like Marsha Brady was always getting picked up by a different boy, and it was like, no piense que tú vas a salir con ese muchacho. It was like one boy, maybe. Right.
This poem also reminds me of us and our relationship a little bit, because I must have met you like right after. Well, we met right out of high school.
Yeah, we read in freshman year of college.
Right. So it reminds me so much. I just feel like, I don't know. It reminds me a lot of us and how we didn't have a lot of like cross-cultural friendships when we met, and we might have been each other's like first like really like cross-cultural friendship.
Yeah, you were my first Jewish friend. I was your first Cuban friend.
I think so.
I never thought about that.
At the end of the day.
And we taught each other a lot about, I was clueless about like your culture when I was like 17 years old. I went to the super white high school, and like Carrie introduced me to all these things, and I'm sure I was making you listen to hair metal, positive of that.
Yeah. The evolution of the speaker, right? Because it's through going to school and leaving that very insular, everybody went to elementary and middle school and high school together. And when you go to college, that's no longer, there are no boundaries to the class. So it was another step for me. And and meeting and realizing that, there were other people who lived differently. It was kind of like eye-opening, as it was for you. I remember you came over one day during the holidays, and there was music playing. You were like, "Oh, is this what you do?" And I thought, how does she not know? But then I had never been to a Hanukkah celebration.
Right.
And I'm sure she was thinking, how did she not know? So it really speaks to, how we are here, the three of us together to begin with, that our evolution of self brought on by what maybe we didn't recognize, and conversely what we did recognize in each other, because there was something that did connect us, despite, as you mentioned, the intersectionality of our cultures. which is ultimately what I wanted to do with this book. I wanted to connect with those who may not know, the trajectory of the story inside.
All right, let me see. Should we go to the next poem?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next poem is Labor Day. I chose this because it's on page 42. I chose this because Carrie loves this poem personally. And it's also a poem about like growth and courage in like the simplest things, things we don't necessarily think of as being like super, super courageous, but it is huge. And it's also about Lincoln Road in Miami Beach, and we all, know and love that place. So go ahead.
It's so much a part of this book was Lincoln Road and the books and books of Lincoln Road. And I feel like this poem is kind of like a time capsule because it's, as Richard mentioned, at the time, it was the first place I felt free. Nobody was cared whose hand you were holding. And, thankfully that's no longer the case, but it's still no longer the same place. So this is an homage to that. Labor Day, 2003, Lincoln Road, Miami Beach. There's a lot I remember to forget, like the days we left the kids with our husbands, both too thunderstruck to protest our preference for one another. Simpler to sanction our escape than block the door and stop us from barreling down the road, purses crammed with Xanax and Marlboros, wallet-sized family portraits tacky with toddler residue. We both wore lipstick and a safe distance, our bodies barely skimming the surface of our desire. We wandered in and out of spaces where no one knew us, where no one cared that we gazed at women on South Beach, where we followed the smooching white-tanked girls into Williams-Sonoma and talked them into registering for the really good Dutch oven, before ducking into the Regal half an hour early so we could hold hands in a theater drained of bright, where we swore we were ready in the smoke and glare of the movie screen. I can say it now. Neither one of us ever did give much away. We packed and stored our cast-offs like our husbands, bagged and waiting to become of use again.
Ooh, that ending. That's a gut punch right there. No, this is a great poem. And what did this mean to you to write this? Like, how long did it take you to get to this moment where you could write this poem?
It took a little while. I'm not one who writes when I'm in it. I'm a minor. I go back and I write about it, but I do take a lot of notes, and I did a lot of journaling during that time. But yeah, that was one that was in the chapbook, but I revamped it because I was revamped too. So it's now when I read it, it's so much about that time, that space that was, the resurgence of Lincoln Road. So it's like I said, it's like a time capsule, and I'm so far from that experience now, just as we're so far from that time as well. It's funny what time does as you get older, huh?
It just keeps rolling. Doesn't give us a break. No, but it does give you the perspective. It does give you like many changes in perspective.
And it was scary, going back to that insular, it was scary. I couldn't imagine being outed, right, at the Sedanos or at the bakery. And this was a place where I knew for sure that nobody was watching and nobody really cared. Nobody cared. They had their own thing going on. And that was very freeing. And that sort of freedom was necessary in the further unraveling.
This is a term I just came across the other day, and Carrie probably knows it because she's wicked smart. But
never too smart.
Never
too smart. But the idea of psychogeography, what we're doing sometimes, or the psychogeographical, how our experiences are linked to place and like in more than just because it happened there, but there is a whole sense of self that develops around this. And I gotta say, I mean, for me as well, on Lincoln Road, it was the same kind of like it's not just a place. It's something deep in my psyche that's embedded and from that place, and because of the things that happened there that kind of environment could support. And it's not just Lincoln Road. It's just like it's more than a place. It's just something.
It's the people, it's the time, it's just everything about it. And that's so Miami, and it's so books and books. How many times did I sit outside, reading and doing and forming these poems? It's so much a part of this book.
And that black bean hummus dip, I'll never forget.
I was going to say the food. It's amazing.
It's like, I've gone to a million restaurants, but I don't even remember what I
don't know if they still have it, but the coffee rubbed meat or something, I don't know, whatever it was. I still dream about that. So good.
And even going there and dreaming someday of having a book at the store. That's the first place I went to when I first got news of my book, and then I went right to the shelf to see where the book would be.
I was just going to say that. Does everybody do that? Because like before you have a book, you go to where your book would be. I don't know if other people do. I guess all writers do it. And we're like, I would be between, whoever and whoever.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun to see.
I'd be next to Blake, which was kind of sad, but
that's great. I think I'm next to like Lori Moore or something. I'll take it.
Yeah, I just made me think how that is all part of linked into our psyche so incredibly. Okay. So one more, right? And then we'll chat some more or have some questions. So let me just make sure I got the page here. Solving crosswords, right? Page 79, and it is the last
79. Yeah.
And I just thought this poem was genius in so many levels. First of all, I think it seems to be like the perfect ending poem for this book in so many ways, because like we're just talking in the beginning how it's been a journey, it's been a piecing together, and like the book had to happen as it happened. And I feel like the whole book in some ways it's been this crossword puzzle, right? And you've had to fill in one line at a time, and then the idea of just working with words to fill in that life, right?
A whole lot of erasers.
And you're like, no, not that, not this, not that. And then just the intersectionality too of everything that's happening in this book between culture and sexuality and gender and all this. It's also, literally across words in that way. And then it also just ends on this wonderful note of, I may have solved the puzzle for now, right? So many layers to this again. Go ahead, Carrie. Or you add to that if you'd like.
Well, everything you said is absolutely on target, and it's also this poem is a love poem for my wife, solving the crossword for Elizabeth, and it was born of her absolutely gorgeous handwriting, and about her absolutely gorgeous presence in my life. So this is for her. Solving the crossword. We are new to one another, new to being us, yet old enough to know it always starts like this. Delicious to the point of delirium, still, we are more than that. And I am surprised at all the ways we fit, even when we don't, each difference a study in alchemy, in balance, and working through instead of out. On our first flight together, I remember those airplane rides before you, crosswords I attempted alone, each puzzle unsolved, abandoned to the next traveler. Now we work on solutions together. Mine are collective, break down words to fill the emptiness within rigid black boxes with the precise mark of your perfect graphite script.
Now that's what I call a good controlling metaphor.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Because the whole thing is a metaphor. You can really lose steam if you're not careful, but it's great.
Yeah, and I liked the play on that crossword, because, for some people, I do write a lot of autobiographical stuff, but it's not autobiography, right? So that's an idea, especially when I'm talking about work with students, the idea that the speaker is not the poet necessarily. So the idea of the crossword, of working the words at work, of fitting the narrative into the schema of the book, I thought was really great. And ultimately that became like that end, the beginning with the definition and then the end of having filled in those boxes. Because what do we use when we are doing crosswords? Most of us who admit it, dictionaries, right? We're looking for those words. So to start with a dictionary entry and close with the crossword, I thought was a really nice framing method.
Yeah, it's a nice, ties it up. Great.
Hey, I never thought about that. That's but also you're making me think how, dictionaries are defined, right? And like it's a definition, right? But then crosswords are searching for, right? Like and so it's also different. It's like the words are not, we're not, what you have is clues, not definition.
Like using the definition and then adapting the definition to suit what you need it to be. And that's also, it ties into that title, how I, co-opt the title and I wrangle it into what serves me, not what it could be used against me for.
Right, you took it back.
I took it back.
Yeah.
What about the title? Because I know that poem I think was important to have first too, in terms of the title, because to clarify, maybe this is part of the conversation too. Sometimes what responsibility do we have to, she might be gone.
I think she's coming back.
Oh no!
But yes, her image did.
What happened?
There we go.
I'm back.
Okay, perfect.
Like we're talking here about kind of as a writer and given that title and that the first poem is this definition of Tortillera, of course, in a poetic play, a manipulation of that, of thinking about how much of how much we have to educate a reader sometimes, or how much we have to consider a reader in those contexts. Also in the cultural context, I know that's something I come across too all the time, and also language, like when you use Spanish or not, or how do you negotiate that? But the title, I think, was something we talked about at length, right?
I think that was it. I was very unsure about using it, but at the same time, I wanted to reclaim the term. Growing up, that was a scary term. It was filled with vitriol. It was filled with humiliation and shame, and in many ways, I think it might have stymied my journey, my path, right? Because it was not even a possibility that one would choose to take on, that existence. So it was very important. And in our speaking about it, I didn't want it also to be co-opting another experience. So that's why I thought it was very important to define it in my terms, how that word was being used and also to ground the book. Because once you understand what it means, you're like, oh, okay. And I think everything kind of makes sense as to the arc of the book. Why I wouldn't, why it would take long. Like the poem that I write about what you called to say at lunch, and how I mentioned how it took a while to unlock the variables, to be able to define them. And I think part of that unlocking was when I finally stopped being afraid of being called or being deemed something that I myself did not accept. And that was the final unlocking into this book.
Do you want to read one more of your choice that we didn't choose for you?
Actually, I think there's some questions.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let's see what this.
Cool. I have been watching, been in bed.
Here, let me see. Where are the questions?
If we go to, I think, ask a question.
Oh, okay.
Do you want me to go ahead and read them?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So we have comments like Sarah saying how much she loves this. And we have hello from San Diego coming from Marcia Wall. And then here's a question for all of you. I'm curious about an iconic moment in each of your lives that combines ethnicity and queerness, whether positive and empowering or challenging and scary.
Wow. I'm going to be honest. I think for me, it would be Lincoln Road, holding a woman's hand for the first time in public. It was iconic. It was scary. It was challenging. It was something that I really had to talk myself into. And I think that the hand holding was probably super tense and super nervous. But when I think back, it was that at that moment, I thought, wow, I never thought I would do this. And as you can see, the moment makes it into the book. So it's really seminal for me to have been able to even do that. Richard?
Yeah. I don't know if I have a specific moment, but something that's still sort of in my psyche is I remember, I don't know where I was exactly, but I remember the first time I danced salsa with a man. Right, because it's all these years of doing quinces, and it's all, that is such a cultural, like, we don't dance freestyle in Cuban, you're always dancing in partners, and I remember this is really cool and really weird, and the whole who leads who kind of thing. And to this day, I still kind of fumble over that sometimes. And luckily, I married a gringo who can't dance, so we haven't even on that front. But that has always been a curious cross where those a cross section between something so deeply ethnic and cultural and a queerness, right? And it's still kind of, like I said, it's still kind of like, okay, we'll go dancing salsa, but let's see.
Yeah. Well, it's when you said that, all the quinces, yeah, it's kind of like muscle memory, right? You're like, oh, this is a new experience. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's like, because I've realized that there's like maybe this deals with the problem about the white girl at the 23 Union too, these intersectionalities and parking lots and things like that, and how we negotiate those kinds of spaces. But it's really interesting because I think that's a good question that's made me think something else, is that, I think a lot of people, they think there's only one kind of queer, right? Or there's only one kind of male queer or whatnot. And I wouldn't say a hierarchy, but a level of comfort or familiarity that I have. Like, I don't get P-Town as much as I used to get Score because of the cultural element, right? Like, I mean, I love P-Town, I love Provincetown, but something like, hey, I know belong here. I mean, I belong here because I'm gay, but I don't really belong here because there's not too many Latinos here that I can count. Too many Cubans, especially, and sometimes in that respect, sometimes because I was socialized in such a straight environment, that sometimes given sort of what is a gay culture that might be really sort of waspy, sometimes I feel almost a little bit more comfortable in a Cuban straight environment. Or I don't know, or it's kind of a toss up, but. What about you, Nikki? You're queer in your own way.
Queer in my own way.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about when Richard, when you came out to me and you took me to the so Richard and I knew each other for like 3 years before he came out to me. Although we all kind of knew, all the friend group were like, we knew, but he thought he was keeping it from us. And you took me to O'Hara's, which was used to be a jazz club on Las Olas, and you were so nervous, and you sat me down, and it was really serious, and you came out to me, and I was like, yeah, I think I won the pool. I don't know, we all knew, but you were so cute. It was amazing, and you were really worried, nothing to worry about.
I'm always the last to know. One is always the last to know for the speed.
It's an experience. I've been told by my students that that's no longer a thing. Like the whole experience of coming out, you just are who you are. But I don't know.
Huh.
I kind of don't buy that in the Cuban family. I don't know.
But
So,
I
Kat,
think what you do great in your book too, Carrie, is that you go through that journey, right, with us, because
Right.
like some people, many people think, oh, you just come out one day and that's it, and like everything, it's like, no, it's a process of second guessing, doubting, taking on Nikki one person at a time and letting them know, and like that, it's not like the hoy mañana,
Right. No, not at all.
So Kathy Whitmire is asking, well, she's saying, thank you for this reading. I look forward to my copy of the book arriving. If this book is a narrative arc of your experience so far, I wonder what your next book will be. Do you have a stash of other poems waiting for a manuscript? How might you organize the next book if it's not too early to ask?
Yes, there are new poems. I wouldn't say that they're in any sort of condition that would be called a manuscript, but I think that there is a very narrative arc in the first book, but I think that I'm also less concerned now with myself, and my lens is kind of broadened a little bit as to, issues that I may face as a lesbian don't necessarily have to do with me. They may prompt a reaction on a larger scale. I'm more concerned with the world that I am leaving for my son now that he is a young man. I'm more concerned with larger concerns that aren't as idiocentric. So there's still narrative because, I'm still me. However, I think that the lens is a little wider now. And I think that the lens is also probably with me a lot more. I think maybe the pandemic slowed everybody down, and that I'm much more aware of the quieter things now, like the specific birds that come to my yard, and that'll make me think about, well, during the pandemic, birds fell out of the nest and we've re-nested them. And it was like my son was the class of 2020 and felt like he had been re-nested by the pandemic. So that's a poem. So it's not necessarily about me, but like the experience of that, the understanding that time had slowed and I was able to pay attention. So that's the difference in the work now. But yeah, there are always new poems. There are always poems.
So with the topic of the LGBTQ community being normalized over the past decade, how did the positive reinforcement towards the community affect the product of this book? And did you ever hesitate to put a poem in?
That's a quick question. And I'm pretty proud to say it came from my son. Kind of took me by surprise. Yes, there are poems that I hesitated to put in. Again, because when you're writing a book, they don't all fit. At the risk of being cliche, you kill your darlings, and some just I hesitated to put in. I thought it was very important to the experience, but maybe it did not fit the arc of the book. And also, when you write personally, there are about your personal experience autobiographically. There are moments when you ask yourself, "Do I want to say this?" And the experience, because the experience of writing is not about, oh, I know this is going to hurt this person if I use this line. And to the reader, it might feel that way. But so I'm always trying to be measured. But ultimately, I think back to Sharon Olds, who said, a poem never killed anyone. So the poem is, at the end of the day, a poem. It's not a testimonial or it's not a blood oath. It's a piece of art that was influenced by a true moment, but not necessarily true. So that's how I worked through the jitters of putting in specific poems in the book. And lastly, as the LGBT movement becomes more normalized, I think I'll probably feel like I have to explain less. I think if this book would have come out 10 years, I would have had to explain a lot more, given a lot more context. But I think the fact that, we gained the right to marry, the Supreme Court decision that just happened that, you cannot lose your job for being gay, all of these things that are falling into place socially have made, especially readings, I think, a lot more normalized and easier.
Yeah, I think about that a little bit too, in the sense also that on the flip side of that, that our experiences are also important to be documented, right? So like right now, like I'm teaching a class on the poetics of protest, and I have to bring in the AIDS poets because they have, so the poem also becomes like you said, an artifact, not just for us, but also for generations. So I think that's also important that this book exists because of that. But also what you're saying, Kara, is also, it is interesting, like also what from what you're saying about your work right now, it seems like you're just being, right? And so we get to be in a space now where we've had this journey and we're being, and sometimes sometimes I'm in my little town too, and like I kind of forget I'm gay, and then I'm suddenly in the supermarket and I'm like down the hall and it's like, holy shit, I'm gay. Like it just hit me all over again. And then I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like I know everybody knows it. So I don't have to, there's it's still there. So but I'm just thinking, like I forget. Like so that's a good thing for all of us. But it seems your work is also just, again, we get to do that because of the time and space, like you said, that we're in right now. That's a great question.
So Anna is saying your work is so cinematic and evokes a time in Miami we don't have films about. Are you writing scripts, and do cinematic adaptations of your work interest you?
Oh my God, are you kidding? I'm still dreaming about my Academy Award moment. Don't think that I have given that one up. Yeah, I do think about cinematic adaptations, and actually just today I was speaking to my son about that, how I would love to make a movie. So thank you so much for that compliment. That is kind of how I view the written word, almost, the movie in my head, the movie in words. So yes.
If you don't already know about Oolite Arts, it's Dennis Scholl is running that. They offer a lot of opportunities to writers and filmmakers that want to make films based in Miami. So I would totally look into that. It's Oolite, Oolite Arts, and I think they might have some opportunities for you to explore.
Oh, wonderful!
Because I think it would be wonderful if there was something.
I would love that.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. I'm bringing you to the Oscars.
Well, the Golden Globes are tonight. So, and there's room, there's room for content now, a lot of it. And as far as TV series too, if it's not a film, maybe it's something like that.
Hey, thank you so much.
So Emma Trellis.
Hi, Emma.
She's saying hello from Santa Barbara, city of Chango. Can Carrie, Rick, or Nikki speak to the presence of the city as a kind of character in their work? Love and kisses, Emma. And that's kind of what you were saying, Richard, about the psychogeography.
Yeah, psychogeography is it's a character in all our lives, and it connects us all. Emma, Emma's worked at Tortillera, which does a lot with that same. The South Beach Days, has that psychogeography. I wonder if it's something that makes you think out loud, because Miami has always been such a shifting city and has been such a changing city. I wonder if that's just why we all kind of feel this kind of connection to to place, and regardless of cultural identity or searching, but just the idea that it's a city that we're always that's always slipping and wonderful, and then slips through our fingers again, and would find, like, I'm back in Miami too, not right now, but I forgave Miami for changing finally after I had like a little mother's quarrel with Miami for 10 years, or like with Lincoln Road. I was like, how dare you, and now I'm finally like, oh my God, this is like an amazing city, and Nikki's back in Miami, and we're just like, this is a whole new Miami that we're also enjoying at a different stage in our lives. And who would go fine dining at 22? You were like, well, we're going straight to it's fine dining.
And I don't think I could make it till 3 a.m. At the club at Twist, anymore. I'd be in the corner sleeping. So yeah, it's kind of worked out for us. I think it worked out. Miami is very much a character. And also we were thinking about the psychogeographies. When I think about the first section of the book, that's a different place than the one where the second section where we get into the Lincoln Road. So like the high school, the speaker in the high school section it's a very different Miami. It's very insular. Whereas Lincoln Road, even though it's also quite insular, it was like this huge, dynamic character that comes on the screen for 5 minutes, but they end up winning all the awards because they're so dynamic. It's like Dame Judi Dench and Shakespeare in Love. She's literally on screen 5 minutes, but she's everything. The only thing actually that I remember about the book. So Miami in very many ways is a character. So yes.
And Miami is also just like a weird, unique place. It's a very strange place, and it's not a melting pot. There's a lot of people here from all walks and shapes, but it's not a melting pot. There's so much tension with all of that. And I think that's, as writers, that's interesting to us. So I think, you reflect that in your book, Carrie, for sure. And Rick does as well. Yeah.
Yeah, there's boundaries of always otherness.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Is there another question?
Yeah.
Well, speaking of place, I love the memories of books and books that you all shared. I mean, I love the fact that so much has gone on there for you to percolate all of those ideas.
Oh, God.
I think there might be one more question. Here from Terry in Orlando. Hello and congrats.
Terry.
You know I love your poems, but I also happen to know you're a talented singer. Have you written any songs?
I haven't written a song in a while. And actually, I always think of you, Terry. It's so interesting because I remember we were driving one day. We did a little writing workshop of our own. We got together and we were driving to dinner and I heard a song and I said, that song is great, but it could be a much better poem. And she looked at me and said, the standard is much lower, dear. It's much lower. And it's true. There are rhymes and songs that we love that we could never get away with in a poem. So I have not written songs in quite a while, but my son is writing songs. So maybe I'll slip him some lyrics. Not that he'll probably use them, but maybe I will. Or maybe I should start writing songs again. Great.
Next step, an album. Next time we'll be doing this for your album.
Recordings.
You can do the movie and the soundtrack.
And
Yeah. Win that Grammy. Get that Grammy, girl.
I'm in. I'm all in.
So Frank Ventura is saying hello to all of you. And he's asking, is there going to eventually be a book signing?
Yes.
God, I hope so.
Yes.
But I also think, Cari, correct me if I'm wrong, that if people wanted their books personalized, you'd be willing maybe to come by the bookstore and do it like safely?
I would absolutely love to do that. Yes.
So why don't we tell everyone that if you do order Tortillera from Books and Books, Cari can put a personalization in the book.
Yes.
So we'll work that out so we can also announce it to people.
That sounds great.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
And then I think that Sarah is saying that these poems are so amazing, so human, so universal, beautifully putting such depth into very moving words and the recitation.
Oh, thank you so much. I thank you all for being here, and thank you to my friends who came and have always been so generous from the beginning. They've had their hands on this book, helping me, supporting me, not letting me give it up. Thank you to Christina and to Mitch and to Books and Books for being so much in so many ways to me and for really helping me come full circle in this moment to present the book. And when I think about that girl scribbling, on the floor, she's so proud. And thank you for allowing her to have that moment.
Oh my gosh, you so deserve it. So thank you, all of you, for your participation in what it is to make this community. So Susan Tenney is saying you've all been a delight to listen to. And I think that is it for questions. I'm so glad, Kari, that your image disappeared, because when you came back, now we can see you a lot better. You were a little blurry at the beginning.
Oh, I don't,
and I was worried about that.
The Wi-Fi gods. Had to
So now we can see your beautiful face and your great bookshelves there in the background. And I want to remind everyone watching, please go ahead and order your copy if you haven't already. We've been selling the book very well. Tortillera Poems. There we go. I wish I don't have a copy, but anyway, so please order the copy, and Kari will come by and arrange to get those books personalized for all of you.
Absolutely.
And we thank everyone for watching and listening, and I hope we get to see each other in person very soon.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Books and Books.
Bye.
Bye.